Okay, I believe we're live. So, hello everybody. None of you that are watching at this moment. Here with the Liberal Sanity Project. He wanted to have a discussion about the Kavanaugh hearings and everything. We had some disagreements on the whole matter, so I think I'll start by letting you tell it. You want to start by saying what your argument was?
I don't know. Firstly, I wanted to. You kind of had an open invite thing, but my issue is that I have witnessed two people who have given testimony, and one of them is very credible, who is very intelligent, has full control of her faculties, and answered questions to the best of her ability. And is she saying that this thing happened, and she's asking for an investigation into it, and the other is evading every possible answer and evading every kind of investigation possible.
Okay, well, that's actually there's a number of places we could start there. First off, why do you claim that he is evading it? Because what I've witnessed is he constantly has said, I will do what the committee asks me.
I say he's evading because that's not the question. Because when he's asked whether he would personally call for an investigation, and he responds he'll do what the committee wants, he's not answering what he would want. He's simply deferring to the committee. That's evasion. But if you need more examples, I'm happy to provide them.
What other examples you got? Because I got examples as to why he kind of does that. I've seen it throughout the first couple of hearings from what I caught of him, and a number of other things he's talked about when I've seen him on speeches.
Well, we got him avoiding calling for the FBI several times. There's also this point where he's asked about his drinking habits. He says that he's never gotten so drunk that he passed out, and he was asked to clarify. This includes college, right? And the senator ends up asking, I don't remember which senator it was. She brings up that college roommates, college acquaintances have stated this is not true at all, that he's never gotten so drunk he couldn't pass out. They stated he was, in fact, a very heavy drinker who was very inebriated lots of times and very aggressive as a drunk. And instead of answering why these discrepancies existed, he simply said, well, I graduated from Yale, top of my class, worked my butt off to get there. In fact, I even have the timestamp if you want me to provide where he does that.
Go ahead. I'll make it easier to go through that whole thing because it's like 11 hours long. I've gone through most of it.
Yeah.
And I caught most of his hearing.
This happens at 6 hours, 41 minutes, and 34 seconds in. And the senator asking the question is Hirono.
Senator Hirono. Okay, and which live stream did you watch that on? Because
that was from the New York Times. I'll leave a link in the Hangouts.
Okay, but anyway,
this stream.
I did miss that one, but from what I've seen of him when he's asked questions, like he has answered numerous times in a bipartisan way to prove that he is not going to let his personal opinions dictate what he judges.
No, he's not done that at all.
Yeah, he has, because I saw the video where Chuck Schumer was questioning him. Chuck Schumer asked him, what is your opinion on abortion? And he said, my opinion, it's not word for word. Basically, he said, my opinion on abortion is irrelevant because Roe v. Wade was decided in the Supreme Court more than 6 times. It's settled law, and my job as a Supreme Court justice is to leave my opinion outside the door when I put that robe on and to the Constitution, not my personal opinion.
Sure. Okay. He might have said that. I have no doubt he said that. But what he displayed in that hearing was anything but partisan impartiality. He came in saying that these entire accusations brought by Christine Ford was an elaborate plot as revenge for the Clintons. That's not That's not partisan impartiality. That's literally the opposite. That's a conspiracy theory. And it's certainly beneath a jurist for the Supreme Court.
Well, then we ought to get Ruth Bader Ginsburg off of there because she just went off on Trump earlier. I do know he said that, and I don't totally blame him because, like, that's what it looks like from the other side, especially from his side. The Democrat Dianne Feinstein in June, or not July.
Yeah.
She held on to it for like 20, maybe more days, said nothing to anybody, and she knows. She's been in there for 40 plus years. She knows protocol. She knows damn well she could have she was supposed to turn that over to the rest of the Senate, especially Chairman Grassley, and ask for a FBI investigation and could have respected Dr. Ford's request for anonymity. She didn't do that. She didn't do that. She didn't ask him anything about it during the hearings. She could have asked if he knew anything about a sexual assault allegation without revealing who it was. And she didn't even ask him about it when they met in privately on August 20th. Kavanaugh was not even aware that she had the allegations at the time that he went to speak with her privately.
I take it you watched her explanation about why she didn't give this information out. She was asked not to by Christine Ford, who didn't want this information made available to anybody until she deemed it necessary.
And I find that bullshit and dumb. If she gave this information to Feinstein in order to tell her, hey, this Supreme Court is possibly a rapist, I think he assaulted me back in high school, then number one, like, what is that going to do if it's between her and Feinstein and she doesn't tell anybody? And number two, why didn't, like I said, she could have given it to the committee and it could have been investigated in privacy without revealing Dr. Ford's identity to the media or anybody. She would have had to reveal it, of course, to like the senators that were investigating said hearing or the FBI if they got involved. But this could have been done under the radar without any of us knowing and been taken care of by now. And
it was her preference that it be handled under the radar. She wanted an FBI investigation. She stated she actually wanted this information to get to the White House while Kavanaugh was on the short list. It didn't, right? So what else was she to do when journalists start asking her about it? That's how this letter became out. This is how she got outed. Journalists found out.
What the journalist did, I agree, that's disgusting. Because I mean, I've heard about the freaking Washington Post sending journalists to her workplace and her house, and that's disgusting. Well,
she didn't say it was Washington Post. She just said journalists.
I thought she said Washington Post. I'll double check. I'm gonna be downloading that entire 11-hour stream and clipping it for videos in the future. But yeah, she did get harassed by journalists. The way the media has handled this, especially whoever leaked it, is disgusting as hell. Because they just invaded her privacy, brought her into the spotlight, and I blame them for the fact that this got public. But I more so blame Feinstein because she could have brought the... There's a lot of things she could have done that she did not do. She could have given it to the chairman. She could have given it to the FBI. She could... You know she has access to go into the White House. She could have gone to the White House and given this thing to Donald Trump herself. But
well, she was asked not to.
Did nothing. She just
it was provided to her from Ford's congressman.
Yes, I understand that she was asked to be kept anonymous, but you're saying that because she was asked to be kept anonymous, Feinstein shouldn't have done anything with it. And by that logic, if Feinstein hadn't done any, well, let's assume Feinstein kept it and the media. Let's assume the media did not leak the letter. By that logic, Feinstein would have kept this under wraps, and then Kavanaugh would have been approved to the Supreme Court. And after he got approved to the Supreme Court, like we wouldn't know about this because the Senate would not have known about the allegation. The FBI would not have known about the allegation. It would have just been kept quiet. He would have gone to the Supreme Court. We would have known nothing about it.
I mean, what do you want to know about it? Maybe she's made it available. You want to say it's a partisan plot? Let's talk about how far back this goes. Firstly, she made it clear to her therapist in sessions years before Kavanaugh was ever on a short list for the Supreme Court that she was a victim of a sexual assault, and she named Kavanaugh. So how does that a partisan plot to undermine Kavanaugh?
I'm not going to... Maybe he talked about that part, but as far as I'm concerned, that part was just an opinion. He didn't testify that was fact. He just said that he just said it. As far as I'm concerned, that's just Kavanaugh's opinion on what's going on, and I see why it looks that way.
Hang on, I don't understand. What are you talking about? Who testified what was fact?
I'm saying Kavanaugh's excluding like right-wing conspiracy theorists, Kavanaugh's the only one that has testified that he thinks it's but a hit job, or however you put that. How you said that escapes me, but Kavanaugh's the only one that said that during his testimony, and as far as I observed, that was an opinion. That wasn't him stating under testimony or whatever that was fact.
It was part of his opening statement. What are you talking about?
I'm saying that yes, it was part of his opening statement, but as far as I can tell, that was an opinion, not something he was putting forward as fact.
I'm not so sure about that. Excuse me.
Like in his head, it might be an opinion. I don't know. I'm not inside his head. I don't know exactly why he put that way. What I drew from that is he thinks it's an opinion. What I drew from that is that was his opinion as to why they were doing this in the first place.
Doesn't it concern you that the Supreme Court nominee has an opinion that there's a partisan plot out to ruin him?
Honestly, with the timeline that I saw up until the hearing, I have no problem with that because it looks that way. Like here's the timeline we got before Ford came to testify.
You're gonna have to explain this to me. How is it looks that way when Ford's been talking about this rape for years in confidence? How can it look like a partisan plot?
Well, first off, in Kavanaugh's defense, he heard nothing about Ford's testimony. I don't know what he knew about her allegation before he came to the courtroom. Until I watched the hearing, I did not know anything about what was in the therapist notes either, so this is just based off observations from before the hearing.
This is what Kavanaugh stated. This is not an opinion. He's stating this in his opening statement. His statement was, quote, "This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit, fueled with the apparent pent-up anger about President Trump and the 2016 election, fear that has been unfairly stoked about my judicial record, revenge on behalf of the Clintons, and millions of dollars in money from outside left-wing opposition groups." There's no evidence for any of that. That is a conspiracy theory.
I'm just basing this off of what I observed from watching the news. And remember, I don't.
Does that sound like an opinion to you, or is he making a declaration that this is what this is?
To me, it honestly sounds like both. It sounds like a declaration based on his own observations. Because there are you can't make a declaration of something that you believe is fact and have it just be your observation.
What?
I might not be explaining that properly. Like,
no, you're not explaining this properly. Your earlier contention was he said this like it was just his opinion. This is part of his opening statement. This whole 2-week effort, calculated and orchestrated political hit, revenge from the Clintons, millions of dollars from outside left-wing opposition groups. That was his claim. That's not an opinion. He's declaring this. This is a conspiracy theory he invented because somebody very credible came up with an allegation against him. She'd been talking about it for years, and he just heard about it.
Okay, let's back. Okay, like here's why I kind of saw why he had that theory. Like I said, he had not heard Ford's theory. When he said that, he had not heard about Ford's testimony. As far as I know, he didn't know anything about Ford. And I'm speaking from somebody who was in his position before the hearing came up. I didn't hear about the therapist notes till the hearing came up. Now, what I remember was, first, we have an anonymous allegation. I don't remember if it was leaked to the media or if I heard a senator say it or whatnot, but there was an allegation.
Leaked to the media before her name became apparent.
Okay, yeah. Okay, then leaked to the media. Heard that there was an allegation leaked to the media that Brett Kavanaugh assaulted somebody back in high school. There was no name to it. But they're throwing this out there like, excuse me. They're throwing this out there like, there's an anonymous allegation that has absolutely no evidence to back it up. We should not let him go to the Supreme Court. Okay. We're just like, that holds no water. That's an anonymous allegation. We don't know anything about it. Move on.
Right, and it's worth mentioning that Republicans were the ones complaining about it being anonymous, compelling Ford to come forward.
Well, what the hell's wrong with that? Like, as far now, like, let's exclude the fact that the media leaked it out. Now it's out there. Now they do need a name to this allegation because Grassley said he did not hear about this allegation. I don't believe any of the senators, aside from Feinstein, heard about this until it was leaked to the media. Due to the fact that it was leaked to the media and it was anonymous, of course they're going to want a name to it, and they're going to want the accuser to come forward if they're going to take it seriously. We can't deny Brett Kavanaugh his seat on the Supreme Court just because an anonymous allegation came out.
Well, here's what Grassley does. He doesn't play that game. What he does is go and investigate without ever getting the letting the name get out, right? You can send investigators. I mean, Feinstein obviously had it at this point. But that's irrelevant, right? Like, it's anonymous. You don't have to complain publicly that it's anonymous if you know where to start in the investigation, right? It happened in high school. Check Kavanaugh's high school history. But that's neither here nor there. It's the Republicans who've been against the prospect of an investigation from day one, right? They could have called for an investigation. They didn't. In fact, if I might quote you, the only one who's done that was Flake, and you said Flake flaked. So tell me,
you
what's
did at the last
wrong
minute.
with an investigation?
I don't totally have a problem with the investigation, and this is also a few of the things that I've heard from that I remember hearing from the hearing. They had asked the FBI, still double checking sources on this, but they asked the FBI if they would investigate it after the allegations came out.
Yeah,
And the FBI said there's nothing to investigate because a federal crime has
that's not
been
what the
committed.
FBI said.
And
Source
what
me.
did they say?
Source me that. I want a source for that claim.
I'm gonna look it up right now. Like, what did you hear them say?
Nothing like that. This is stuff I've heard from like people who aren't even connected to the FBI, people who don't speak on behalf of the FBI. The FBI has been mum this entire time. The FBI as an organization. The president said there's nothing to investigate. But the president's been just as what's the word? There's been just as much of a cock block on this as the Republican Party at large. There is stuff to investigate. You've got an allegation. You've got names of people at the party, right? Go talk to those people. Go talk to people who've partied with Kavanaugh. Talk to people who knew Kavanaugh in high school, right? If this is behavior endemic to a guy who parties a lot and drinks a lot, maybe this isn't his first victim. Maybe other people saw him being aggressive. Maybe other people saw him being so inebriated he blacked out, right? There are areas to investigate that aren't being investigated.
The one area I know that's not being investigated due to the fact, the one area that I will admit should be investigated is I want to know who the hell owns the freaking house. Nobody said anything about who owns the house that they were partying at. You're telling me this happened at a house where 5 kids were just in there partying and nobody knows who the hell owns this house?
Yeah, precisely. Something an FBI investigation could get to the bottom of, but your president has been limiting the scope of the FBI investigation. So thus far, they can only talk to 4 people.
I believe that's the only leads that they. I believe that's the only leads they have right now. Anyway,
they're not willing to talk to Christine Blasey Ford. The FBI approved 4 people per the New York Times. Hang on, let me find those 4 people for you. I'm sorry, the White House has approved 4 people for the FBI to talk to. Okay, Mark Judge, Kaiser, PJ Smith, and Ramirez. Those are the 4 people approved to talk to. They're not talking to is Ford. They're not talking to any of the people Ford named as being at the party other than PJ Smith. They're not talking to any of Ford's college roommates who said they saw him drinking heavily, the same ones that was invoked by Klobuchar during the hearing. Those are people you could talk to, especially if it's seen. Especially, you should be interested in this. If it appears that Brett Kavanaugh lied under oath, why would you want him on the court? He said he'd never gotten so drunk that he couldn't black out. Well, Klobuchar brought up people who said he did. Why don't you talk to those people?
Is there any more information on those people other than they exist? Because the only article that I've been cited as far as arguing about that is an interview with CNN, and the only source that I will exclude as credible is CNN because they've been caught lying too many times for me to give a shit what they say.
What does CNN lied about?
I'll look up sources on that later. But they've been bullshitting about policy. They've been making shit up about what Trump said. They've been taking clips out of context. I know those for sure. They've taken many clips out of context.
What about Newsweek?
Newsweek.
Christina Zell writes at Newsweek. Here's the headline. I've witnessed him stumbling drunk. Brett Kavanaugh's classmate says Supreme Court nominee is blatantly lying, obviously referring to his drinking habits.
He had said, though, that he's drinking too many beers before.
Yeah, but he denied drinking so much that he's blacked out. In fact, when Amy Klobuchar asked him about that, he responded by asking, hey, Amy, have you ever blacked out? Which was a very inappropriate question to ask a senator. That alone should have been disqualifying.
Is he not allowed to show emotion when he's being accused of a heinous crime?
He's not. He's a justice. He's nominated as a justice to the Supreme Court, and he himself said it was a job interview. That is not how you conduct yourself at a job interview. So yes,
but you also
he's not allowed to show emotion
for that. False rape allegation at a job interview under intense scrutiny from one party that has already made up their mind that you're guilty.
Firstly, I don't know that any
Like-
Democratic senators made up their minds that he's guilty. What they've made up their minds about is that there needs to be an investigation. The same thing Republicans have made up their minds about insofar as Ford's credibility goes. That's a different statement from he's lying or he's guilty. They haven't said that, but they have brought up questions pertinent to the investigations, such as his drinking habits. To reverse that onto Amy Klobuchar, who just seconds ago in that question told Kavanaugh that her father was an alcoholic who still attends AA meetings in his 90s, as do you ever get blackout drunk, is wholly inappropriate, and it should be immediately disqualifying for his position. Yeah, you're not allowed to show that kind of emotion if you want a seat on the highest court in the world, or the country, I should say. I don't know if it's the world.
I don't agree with that at all, because I guarantee all of them have shown some kind of emotion like that during hearings at one point or another, especially if they've been accused of something. Like, we're bringing this guy in here, we're grilling, especially the Democrats. The Democrats were very unfair to him while...
How are the Democrats unfair to him?
Okay, like, let's start with Kamala Harris. Let's go back to the first hearing, just the confirmation hearing. First, she goes in there and she's asking him, have you ever spoke to somebody at this law firm that was started by Trump's personal attorney? 350 people work for that freaking law firm. She's expecting him to remember, out of all the thousands of lawyers that he interacts with on a weekly basis, he's supposed to remember the names of every single one of them that he mentioned a word of the Mueller probe to, and whether or not they work at that law firm. And she won't, and she's not. And when he asked, do you have somebody you're thinking of? Because I don't know everybody that works at that law firm. She's just like, oh, I think you do. I think you know somebody. You just don't want to tell me. And he's sitting there like, you tell me who you're thinking of, and I'll tell you whether or not I talked to them. But I don't know if I talked to somebody here. She did. First she does that, and then we get in there. They asked him, and then we bring up that FBI thing, which I still don't get why that's such a big deal. They keep asking him if he personally wants an FBI investigation. I see the reason why he's not answering why he specifically wants. I see why he's answering why or not answering. Fuck. Can't talk.
Tell me. I'd love to hear it. Why is he not answering? If he's innocent, why is he not answering?
He's not specifically saying whether or not he would want the investigation because, number one, he has no authority or anything like that to ask for an FBI investigation. It would just be his opinion. And as far as I've observed on numerous things,
his opinion. How would he feel? He can answer his opinion. He can give a direct answer. Yes, I would welcome an FBI investigation. These charges are false, and I know an investigation would find nothing. That's an answer. You can give that as an answer.
Yes, I agree. You can give that as an answer, but saying I will do what the committee asks me, that's not saying yes, I want an investigation, and it's not saying no, I don't want an investigation.
You're right. It's not saying anything at all. It's effectively filibustering. I absolutely agree with you. That's not an answer at all. That's a filibuster. He was asked a very direct question. He could have given a very direct answer. Instead, he evaded.
Because like you've seen the media, they'll crucify him no matter what answer he gives.
How would the media possibly crucify him asking the FBI to investigate him?
I have no idea. I bet they'd come up with something. They've come up with a lot of bullshit reasons for why somebody gave an answer that like that. Right?
Let me ask you, what do you think looks worse? I will do whatever the committee wants, or yes, I welcome an FBI investigation into my actions because I know I'm innocent. What looks worse?
Honestly, I don't think either one of them inherently does look worse, because both of them are saying, I will comply with what you tell me to do. If I get an FBI investigation, I'll agree with the FBI investigation. He's basically saying I'll agree to an FBI investigation if ordered. He's just not outright saying I will.
Well, shouldn't you be asking why he's not outright saying that? Aren't you at least a bit curious why he's not outright saying that? Doesn't that bother you in the least?
I am a little bit curious, to be honest, yes. But the reason I'm not that worried about it and why it's not concerning to me is because he's done this numerous times. On the abortion question, I'm not giving my personal opinion. When they asked him about potential court cases, if they went to the Supreme Court, he said, I will not answer on what I would decide on hypothetical court case because I would have to see said court case before I came to a decision.
Right. We're not talking about an ideological approach to a nuanced court case, right? We're talking a very straight, direct forward question. Would you like the FBI to investigate these claims into you? That requires a very straight, direct, forward answer. He was not giving that as an answer. He evaded that answer multiple times. This is not something we saw from Ford. Ford welcomed the FBI investigation. Ford provided a polygraph test. Ford's done nothing but reinforce that she's a credible witness. All Kavanaugh's done is deflect.
Yeah, but also on the Ford side, the only thing that she's really proved to us is that she got sexually assaulted, and nobody's doubted at all that she got sexually assaulted.
You were
she just has no credible
some
proof.
Dumb American. She's doubted she's been sexually assaulted.
Well, I'm when I said everyone, I was referring. I'm echoing a little bit. But
okay, actually, we'll take that. We'll go there. All right. So she's been sexually assaulted. Don't you have an interest in finding out who sexually assaulted her?
Yeah, I do have an interest in that. I think it would be great to get to the bottom of that.
So shouldn't you welcome an FBI investigation?
Yeah, I never said I never said I don't want an FBI investigation or anything like that. I was just defending Kavanaugh on why he.
Yeah, you're playing apologetics for Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh himself said he has no doubt she experienced some kind of a traumatic event, but he's only sure that it wasn't him. If he has no doubt she experienced a traumatic event, why isn't he calling for an investigation into that traumatic event?
I believe it's because he knows it's not his place to ask for one, nor does he have the authority to ask for one.
Firstly, he is a judge, and he's a judge, and he's the accused. It isn't his place to ask for them. I reject that. He absolutely.
That's not how the chain of command works, though. He can ask for one.
Why didn't he? Then why didn't he declare, yeah, I would support the president? I mean, yeah, if you're saying he can, why didn't he?
I personally don't know his reasons. The best I could guess would be like, you don't.
Okay, so let's assume let's assume the investigation plays out and they find there's some credibility to Ford's allegation. Kavanaugh was seen partying with women. He got aggressive. He got drunk. He started groping women. Is that disqualifying for you?
If they find actual evidence that they can back up, yes, it is.
Testimony is evidence. If they find a witness that says that, is that enough to disqualify him?
If they find it depends specifically on how the witness testifies. Like the witnesses that we saw on CNN, if they can prove that the person's associated with Kavanaugh, and if they get a sworn testimony under oath to the Senate or the FBI, then yes, that counts.
Sure.
But they haven't said that yet. So far, it's just been opinions on what they claim they saw happen when he was drunk.
But I'd like to point out, you haven't answered my question. Is that disqualifying?
I said yes, it would be disqualifying.
No, you actually said if they can find. So I mean that would be qualifying. Yes.
Yeah, but I did specify it has to be substantiated by a sworn testimony and confirming whether or not they actually knew Kavanaugh back in high school. Because the witnesses that Ford named, excluding Mark Judge, they said that they don't. Well, or no, one of them said that she don't even know Kavanaugh.
Okay.
The other two said,
I hadn't heard this.
Leland Kaiser said, I don't recall the party, and I don't even know Brett Kavanaugh. She did state that she believes what Ford said, but she cannot back it up with any substantial facts that can be submitted into a court of law. What's his name? Mark Judge said he doesn't recall the events. He doesn't recall the party either. What's the last guy's name?
Surprise. Mark Judge is a lifelong drunk, right?
Yeah, which is something else that somebody pointed out. I forget who it was. Somebody pointed out that one of the other reasons that he didn't want to come, he gave a sworn statement because he doesn't.
I know who you're talking about. It's Senator Whitehouse. That should be worth investigating. But your President Trump, whom I love and want to hug, has limited the scope of the investigation to 4 people. Certainly, you're against
investigating what? Investigating what exactly?
Well, investigating Ford's claims for one.
Yeah, no, not that. I was talking about. I wonder what you wanted to.
Well, how about we
investigate now? Because
Well, I can tell you how. So there were numerous allegations brought up at the hearing. One is that Ford is a heavy drinker who sometimes gets so inebriated he has no memory of what he's doing, right? He gets blackout drunk. Another is that Ford is aggressive with women, that he was handsy with women, stuff like that, that he was sexually inappropriate when intoxicated. That's something you can investigate. And the third was Ford's the rape claim by Kavanaugh is what I meant. But the third is the rape claim from Dr. Ford. These are all things the FBI can investigate, but they're limited in scope to only talking to 4 people.
Looking for the source on that, but I don't believe that they had any substantial evidence to go beyond that, aside from, like, because when they talk to Ford, when they talk to the 4 people that they were told to talk to, they're not going to get anything out of them that they don't already have. Judge,
right, which is why you
Leland,
don't
Kaiser,
those 4 people. Right?
And
you couldn't limit it to 4 people for that very reason.
Yeah, but that would still be the thing is, though, that would still be their starting point. They'd start with from what I've gathered, they would start with the 4 witnesses that Ford named. They would ask them questions again, but they would get the same answers because they already testified to the Senate under penalty of perjury that they don't recall the party.
Right.
So they're not going to change.
But the investigation is limited
on that.
I gave you 2 other things they could investigate, such as his drinking habits, right? Ford said he'd never gotten so drunk that he blacked out, that he didn't remember. Well, you've got people who were brought up by Amy Klobuchar as saying that's not true, right? Why don't we talk to those people? Aren't you curious if Judge Kavanaugh lied under oath? Shouldn't that be disqualifying? Shouldn't she want to find out?
Yeah, but how was one or 2 people?
Maybe there's 4 or 5 people. Maybe there's 10 people. Maybe there's 20 people. We don't know until we ask. Right? You ask. I am curious,
and I did say I don't totally agree with them. Start with them limiting the scope of the investigation, but to my knowledge, as far as the FBI can go, is the 4 people that we've already named as witnesses for Ford, and they're not.
Personally,
at least as far as Ford goes, they're not going to get anything because
Ramirez was not a witness named by Ford. Ramirez was the Yale student, so it's not all the witnesses named by Ford. It's 2 of the witnesses named by Ford, and actually, it's really 1 if you consider Judge the only witness. Kaiser and P.J. Smith were at the party. Ford named other people at the party you could talk to, so it's not just everybody named after Ford. That's also the Safeway that Mark Judge supposedly worked at. The FBI is not interviewing them, and Ford stated under oath that if they could interview the Safeway, if they could get the records from the Safeway to determine when Mark Judge worked there, she could do a better job of finding out, of narrowing down the date for them. But they're not actually going to interview Ford, and they're not going to interview anybody from the Safeway, and they're going to interview a very drunken and inebriated Mark Judge, who's going to say it didn't happen or he doesn't remember.
Oh, fuck me, the rest of it was over there.
So my problem is the investigation by design is going to fail because the president's limited it, because the White House has purposely narrowed its scope and narrowed the witnesses to only these certain people and only these certain time frame and only these certain topics, when there's actually numerous claims that could be investigated just based on that testimony alone.
Well, I don't even know why Ramirez is included in the limited scope, because even the New Yorker that reported on her original claim, they said they can't corroborate her story whatsoever. They said they called dozens of witnesses and nobody remembers anything about that. And most of them had said that if something like that had happened, they would not have, or they would have known about it.
The FBI has
even
better
she
resources
said,
than Ramirez or the New York Times.
What's that?
The FBI probably has better resources than the New York Times.
Well, yeah, fair point. But like, even with her original story, even she admitted, I can't. She admitted I cannot even confirm that it was Kavanaugh because I was drunk at the time that it happened. Like, she may be in the same boat as Ford. Maybe somebody popped his willy out in front of her, but she said that she was drunk. Maybe she can't confirm it was Kavanaugh. Maybe it was just somebody that looked enough like Kavanaugh while she was drunk that she thought it was him.
And maybe it actually was Kavanaugh. So why don't the FBI investigate? I'm not saying Kavanaugh's a rapist, and I'm not saying Kavanaugh's a sexual deviant. I'm not saying any of these things. I'm not even saying Ford's necessarily believable. But I'm saying we're never going to know until we investigate. And Republicans are so diehard against investigation, and Democrats are so diehard in favor of it. And I just don't understand it. Don't you want to know what happened?
I think we're kind of just arguing about how the investigation would play out versus disagreeing on the investigation, because we both agree that they should do investigation, and I'll admit it's probably a stupid idea that Trump limited the scope of it. I heard about that, and I was just like, this is probably a dumb idea, because
don't you think Kavanaugh's confirmation should be delayed until the investigation concludes? And don't you think that the time limit on this investigation being a week should probably be lifted?
I'll put it this way, because this is how I would personally do it. I would give them the full power to investigate, but I would say if you don't come up with anything within a week, we're going to the vote.
Why?
Because I see it.
Hang on, why? Why would you say that?
Because first off, the Senate, first off, the biggest one that we were even able to get a hearing from was Ford. The Democrat, start off with the fact, let's not forget the fact that they held on to the letter for 20 days and didn't tell a soul about it. And regardless of what Ford asked, yes, Ford has to be anonymous, but that doesn't negate the fact that Feinstein did not follow protocol, because she could have given it to the White House or the Senate. And
you want to talk protocol? Let's talk about Chuck Grassley. He's had this letter since mid-September. He could have asked for an FBI investigation too. All of the Republicans could have, but they didn't. They went ahead with a vote.
He could have asked for an FBI investigation, but he started off by, maybe he didn't follow it exactly. I'm still trying to look for the exact specific protocol that they're supposed to follow. But
I don't think there's any protocol.
He started by
it seems kind of unprecedented, barring Anita Hill, which had an FBI investigation. But that's kind of my point. There's already precedent for this insofar as Anita Hill goes. It was concluded within 3 days. So I don't see the point in limiting scope. I don't see the point in limiting time. And I don't see the point in limiting witnesses. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a hypothetical.
Okay, hypothetical. Go ahead.
President Obama gets this allegation from congressional Republicans that Hillary Clinton is running the secret email server that classified information is stored on in violation of this federal law. And they demand an FBI investigation. President Obama says, sure, we're going to give it 10 days, and they can only ask her about the email server in particular, and they can only ask Hillary Clinton. Wouldn't you be a little outraged?
If the allegations were put it this way, yes, I would, but that would be because he got the allegation right when it happened, and it wasn't held in secret by somebody for 20 plus days, when that person that held onto the information knew that they were supposed to either take it to Obama or the FBI or the chairman of the Senate and say, hey, we need to look into this. That's the big difference that I saw.
All right, we've had 15 plus days that Grassley's known about this, and they haven't asked for an investigation. Don't you think Grassley has an obligation to ask for investigations? Let me ask you, do you think it's wrong for the Senate to have voted to confirm Kavanaugh without having an investigation done?
Say that one more time.
Do you think it is wrong, as in a violation of moral norms for our country, our government, to confirm Brett Kavanaugh without ever having an investigation?
I don't think it. Based on the hearing that we had, we have no evidence to prove that he did it or didn't do it. So
you're like the perfect catch-22, because this is what Republicans do. This is very infuriating. They say there's no evidence to investigate, and then when you ask to investigate, they say there's no evidence to cause for it, right? And then if you say, well, let's investigate and find evidence, they say there's not enough evidence. It's a catch-22. You need to investigate to find evidence, but you say there's no evidence to investigate. It's this circular reasoning. It's a little annoying. Of course there's no evidence. Nobody asked for an investigation.
Well, let's start over. Let's go back a little ways. My first question is, yes, maybe the Republicans are mishandling this, but my question still, now, taking into consideration the fact that that Feinstein could have had the FBI investigate under the radar, under the media's radar, and respected Ford's anonymity if she had taken it to the Senate immediately. Why are we not blaming her for the fact that she didn't do that?
Well, blame her all you want. Blame everybody. But the point is, Republicans went ahead to vote on Judge Kavanaugh without having an investigation concluded. Right. What I asked you earlier was, don't you see that as a violation of a moral norm in this country?
Yes and no. I got a mixed opinion on that. Like, an investigation would be a better idea. I see for that. I agree that they should move on with it. I agree with the fact that they ordered one. I don't agree with how they're doing it. I do think they should go ahead and expand the scope of witnesses. We agree on that part.
Okay. Do we agree that it's a violation of a moral norm, that it is immoral for the Senate to move forward with voting on Kavanaugh without having an investigation concluded? Do we agree that that is immoral? Like, I just want to straight yes or no to that.
I'm going to say no to it being immoral because I think it's a little bit of a stretch considering Grassley has done a lot of things trying to get Ford to a hearing and trying to deal with the hearing. And this is where, and this is another thing I want to get into in a minute, but he's tried to get a hearing. He's tried to bring Ford in front of the Senate to testify and put forth her evidence. And that's the other reason why I'm trying to get the actual code of conduct for how they're supposed to deal with these investigations, because I don't know if they're supposed to ask the FBI for an investigation the second they get the allegations, or if they're supposed to determine if it's worth asking the FBI first.
Yeah, well, Grassley made it clear that the Democrats could have asked for an investigation from the FBI anytime they wanted, to which the Democrats responded, they did. They were stonewalled by Republicans. Nobody wanted an investigation. But that doesn't answer my question. Like you said no, it's not immoral because I'm not quite sure. What?
Well, like, I'm mixed on that. I don't see reason to call it immoral due to the fact that they've tried to accommodate Ford with everything and try to. It depends on the code of conduct.
They have not tried to accommodate Ford with everything. Firstly, Ford asked for an investigation by the FBI already, so just in that they didn't accommodate her.
Let me double check. Let me look at my timeline if I have it.
Ford stated under oath at the testimony she wanted the FBI to investigate.
Oh yeah, right? I heard that numerous.
This is how I know. This is how I know Republicans don't care about the truth. They scheduled the vote to confirm him the day after Ford's testimony. They were going to vote to confirm him regardless of what Ford said. Shouldn't that bother you? We'll even say it's not even a moral norm, right? Let's just say it's unprofessional. Does that strike you as professional?
A little unprofessional, yeah, maybe. They probably should have given it a couple days to do it. But the way I saw it originally was, they brought Ford in. They brought Ford in. They had the sworn testimonies from everybody. They had Kavanaugh come in under oath to give his testimony, and he had calendars to back up his claims. When Ford doesn't know the date, time, place that it happened, and none of her witnesses could corroborate her story, it basically isn't your word against hers.
If Ford doesn't know the date, time, and place that this happened, how do those calendars support Judge's claims or Kavanaugh's claims? Those could be calendars from a completely different time period, right?
I'm cross-referencing that with his testimony. Like, he showed that it detailed almost every place that he went that summer. He wrote down who was there. He crossed off things that he didn't go to, or people that ended up not showing up when they were planning to show up. There's one single date that has I think two of the other people that were claimed to have been involved.
So I mean, if I can just understand this, because he didn't write down assaulted Christine Ford on this date, that exonerates him. Like, what is that evidence of?
I know he wouldn't write down that he assaulted her or anything like that, but he said that she doesn't know whether it happened on a weekend or a weekday, and his calendar show, I was doing stuff all summer. I was working during the weekdays. I was working during the weekends.
Cool.
He showed the few times that he had gotten off to.
Let's be clear. Those calendars also said a fair number of parties, up to and including beach weeks, right? Brewskis, stuff like that. Playing double triangles games and stuff like that. Well, I think that's from the yearbook, but you understand my point. The calendar is revealing enough to show that Kavanaugh occasionally went out drinking and occasionally went out partying, right?
Which he didn't disagree to, and he never disputed.
Then what do those calendars prove? He could have been out drinking and partying with Ford present.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He very well could have. And to be honest, maybe he did do this assault and just doesn't remember anything about it. But
Yes,
there's no
yes,
proof there's no proof to suggest that he did. The witnesses don't remember being at a party with him. And the big one that strikes me as possible evidence is Leland Kaiser said she doesn't even know Kavanaugh. So how would she have been at a party
Have you ever
with
been to a party?
Kavanaugh where he assaulted? Yeah.
You've been to a party. Do you know every single person at that party? You don't think it's conceivable that some people can go to parties or house meetups and never know somebody who's there? I've never seen them before, not be familiar with them.
Okay, you got me there. Because I have met a few people at a party. Like I could recognize their face, but I wouldn't be able to call them out by name.
All right.
But to my knowledge, I don't even think she would recognize him in a facial lineup.
Well, he's aged a bit since then, but I don't know. Maybe. I mean, do you remember everybody 30+ years ago from your childhood?
I'm 24.
Okay. Do you remember anybody from? Do you remember all of your classmates from 12 years ago?
Actually, I quite literally do remember all of them. I had a class of 24 people.
Really? Name them. Give me their first names.
I remember all of them.
It's only 24
Chance,
people.
Marissa, Cheyenne, Kendra, Bailey. That's 5. Tabitha, Danica, Tyrell, Levi, Christian, another Christian. Danya.
All right, that's 12 people. That's good enough. All right, okay, congratulations. Yeah. But I don't think it's inconceivable. It's ridiculous to think that some people can't remember people they were acquainted with some 30+ years ago. This was an incident that happened a long time ago.
Yeah, and like and like so far with the information we have, we're not going to be able to confirm that we can't prove that he assaulted Ford.
Right.
Therefore, legally speaking, it didn't happen.
Firstly, that's not what legally speaking means, but that's fine. But this is like textbook moving the goalpost. Nobody's talking about proving anything. This is not a court of law, right? We'll never be able to prove that. Nobody was there but Ford, Kavanaugh, and Judge, according to the allegations, right? And obviously, 2 of them are going to say it didn't happen. So this is never going to be proven to that extent. But what can be proven, what can be known, is Mark Judge's and Brett Kavanaugh's behavior when they were inebriated. That's something we can look into.
That is something we could look into. But how far would you want to go? Would you just want witness testimony?
Well, yeah.
Witness testimonies, or would you want because I would also want proof that they actually went to the college or whatever together and ran in the social circles that would put them at a party together.
What kind of proof would that look like?
What?
What kind of proof would that look like? How do you prove you're friends with somebody?
Maybe not necessarily.
Brett Kavanaugh was mentioned in Mark Judge's books. I think it's safe to say they were joined at the hip.
That hasn't been denied either. He said that Mark Judge was one of his best friends.
Right. So I guess I'm just not clear. What kind of proof are you looking for? What proof would be sufficient for a 30+-year-old incident?
Are we talking about his actual personal friends, or them random bitches that came onto CNN to say that, oh, I saw him stumbling drunk?
Yeah, well, let's talk to everybody. Why don't we? Right? He said under oath he's never gotten so drunk that he passed out. Somebody says that's not the case. Why don't we find out how they knew each other?
Yeah, like that's exactly what I was getting at, is find out how they knew each other and at least get some semblance of how they would know each other, get some kind of proof that they would have ran in the same social circles or something like that, because like any random goomer, especially in this political climate, any random goomer that went to the same college at the same time that didn't like Trump or didn't like the Democratic or didn't like the Republican Party What's to stop them from testifying under oath that they saw him stumbling drunk? Because there's honestly not a way. I honestly don't think there's a way to prove that that was a lie if they went to the same school, unless we make sure that we.
Well, I don't know that you can prove that it's a lie, but I think there's such a thing as preponderance of evidence, right? Like if you got a lot of people saying, yeah, I knew Brett in high school, I knew Brett in college. He was a ridiculously heavy drinker. He was constantly passing out. He was constantly vomiting. He overdrank to an excess. That's evidence.
Yeah, I get that would be evidence. The only other thing I would want to double check is making sure that the guy that said he's a heavy drinker is also. They can also make sure that Kavanaugh knows of him, or find some way to connect the dots between the two. Because like somebody brought up the fact that it's like trying to claim it's credible because 3 people that have no dot that you can't connect the dots on claim that he was a stumbling drunk. I'm like, no, it's not. If you can't connect the dots on them, how the hell do we know that they actually know Kavanaugh, that they're not just talking heads looking for their 15 minutes of fame and claiming that they think he's drunk?
I'm not against finding out how they knew Kavanaugh. I'm the one calling for that. It's Republicans who are saying, let's not do that. And in the same breath, the Republicans are accusing the Democrats of not believing in due process.
I think those are 2 different accusations in a way, because they're just not asking for an FBI investigation, and I haven't looked at the chat at all, but they're just not calling for a full FBI investigation and double checking the law. I need to double check the laws on that, but I don't believe there's evidence to warrant a full FBI investigation.
So we're back at that catch-22. There's no evidence to warrant an investigation. Why is there no evidence? Because nobody will investigate. Why will nobody investigate? Because there's not enough evidence to warrant an investigation. You're living out that catch-22 again. What evidence is sufficient to warrant an investigation? A person comes to you and says, hey, this guy raped me. And you talk to him and he says, I didn't do it. Do you just stop there?
No, you don't just stop there. Like when I think about the investigation, I mostly think about the Ford case and understand why there probably wouldn't be enough evidence to start that, because they're at a standstill at the moment. The evidence. What?
I thought you just said there wasn't. Like a few minutes ago, you said there wasn't enough evidence to start an investigation.
Yeah, exactly. I did say that. I was saying if they went into an investigation, they'd be at a standstill right now unless they could find some way to pinpoint exactly where that house was. And Ford's the only one that is claiming she knows for a fact that this happened, but she can't remember when, where, or anything like that. The other 3 witnesses say they don't remember anything about this party.
Sure, but you know what else she said? She said she can probably more accurately guesstimate when, where, and this happened if they can find out when Mark Judge worked at the Safeway.
Yeah, and here's a clarification I want to know on that. What do you mean by when he worked at the Safeway? Because he probably is she trying to find out the day that she met him at the Safeway, or how long he worked there?
She saw him as an employee at the Safeway like a few weeks after the incident happened. That's how you can narrow down the date.
Yeah, but like, let's say he worked there for like 3+ months. Like, if he worked there just one day, then yes, I would see how that would work. But if they go over there and they say, hey, you know this motherfucker that worked for you 36 years ago, even if they have records of him having worked there, this is 36 years ago. I don't know if they even keep employee records that long. But let's assume they can find something on him. Let's assume they can find the schedule from that summer. If he worked there the entire summer and he was there, like, let's say he was there 5 days of every week out of that summer, how the hell is she going to narrow down the date that she found him if that's his work schedule?
We don't know until we look, right?
Fair point. I just don't see that. My point on that is I don't see that.
That's fine.
Doing anything.
That might actually be a total. It might be a total waste of time. Let the FBI say it's a waste of time. Right? So let the FBI say there's no evidence. Don't stand in the way. Don't stand in the way of an investigation and then simultaneously, in the very same breath, accuse the Democrats of throwing out due process, because that's the opposite of due process. The Democrats are the ones trying to call for due process. It's the Republicans who are trying to ram a candidate into the Supreme Court without ever subjecting him to the checks he is owed.
Fair point, and this is one of the things that has been making me sick about this whole charade since the beginning. And this is also where I see why Kavanaugh believes that it's a hit job. 23 minutes after he was announced by Trump, Chuck Schumer immediately said, "I'm going to oppose him with everything I've got."
Okay.
So did 90% of the Democrats. All the Democrats were already made up their mind. They're not going to vote him in.
Okay. And I have no doubt that there might be an element of politics being played by some of the Democrats. That could very well be true. That doesn't mean that Ford's lying, right? That doesn't mean that something didn't happen, right? That's not enough reason to just disregard an investigation wholesale.
Yeah, fuck. And I don't disagree with that. I just, honestly, can we agree that put it in Trump's words, can we agree that there is blame on both sides?
No, I can't.
Because why
blame
not? Because like, I'll agree that the Republicans aren't doing a good job, but how come we can't agree that there's blame on both sides when Feinstein's mishandled this from the start?
Oh, I'm sorry. Blame for what?
Pretty much blame for this whole thing. Like, starting off with the fact that Feinstein mishandled this accusation by not telling anybody about it for 20 days and having it get out
this whole thing. You want to talk blame? Let's talk about Merrick Garland, right? Like, how far you want to go back for both sides?
I'm not going to go back for that. I'm not going to go back for that because, yes, I know about Merrick Garland, but I need to research that one. That's on the list to research for the...
Merrick Garland was Obama's Supreme Court nominee after Justice Scalia died. That seat was kept open for a year. Merrick Garland never got a hearing because Republicans were interested in holding that seat in the hopes that they could win the election. And shocker, they won the election. So you want to talk about like a delay in the process and an unethical delay for political purposes? Let's talk about Merrick Garland. Like, this is not a both sides kind of situation. I don't believe that calling for a delay to investigate a sexual assault allegation is playing politics. I think that's what you do when a sexual assault allegation happens to a nominee. That's what you should do. You should delay a vote. You should investigate.
The thing that irritates, like, yes, we've agreed that we should investigate. I'm not denying that. I've agreed that we should investigate it. I think one of the biggest problems is the fact that both sides are playing politics. The Democrats, I honestly believe that most of them are trying to make sure that we delay this until after the midterms, because then they can say no until such time. They're assuming that they're going to get a blue wave. I haven't seen much of the polls or anything as far as the midterms go, so I'm just going to say it's up in the air. They're assuming that they're going to get a Senate majority back, and if they get that, then they can deny Trump everything that Trump tries to do.
Okay.
Including his Supreme Court justice. That's why we've all seen this. This is how we've all seen this stuff going on, because we conveniently get a leak to the media that there's an assault allegation that's been held secret. We don't have a name to this allegation, but a lot of the liberal media is calling for us to take it seriously.
Ford dropped a tip to the Washington Post anonymously. How they found out it was that Feinstein had a letter, and how they found out it was Ford, that's what's up in the air.
Yeah, that's another thing. That's another reason why I do. Another reason why I would agree that the scope of the investigation needs to be changed, because we also should look into finding out who the hell leaked that letter. So somebody from her office, if it was as confidential as she claims, somebody from her office, if not her herself, leaked that letter.
So I want to make sure we're on the same page as this. You think that Ford's not lying. Something very well could have happened to her, right?
I believe, yes, I agree. I believe something happened to her.
And it very well
But
could have been at the hands of Brett Kavanaugh. Not saying it is. It very well could have, right?
I'll agree that it could have, but I'm not going to say that it. But in my eyes, it's the same as the law. He's innocent until he is proven to be guilty.
Okay. Sure, he's innocent until proven guilty. Nobody's saying he's guilty. It could have been Brett Kavanaugh, and it could have happened to Ford, right? So the FBI should investigate, right?
Yes.
The FBI should investigate without time constraints, without constraints on scope, without constraints on witnesses, right?
Yep.
And hopefully I'm getting this. The Senate should not confirm until the FBI concludes that investigation. Fair?
Fair. As long as we get it, like.
So you're basically on my side on this.
But here's one thing that I do want to ask. How long should we let them do it?
I would say as long as it takes. And if you have to, if it takes too long, I would say just find a new nominee.
It might not be a bad idea. However, I'm not going to lie. I kind of wish he had picked a woman instead of Kavanaugh because he's got like 2 or 3 women on the short list of people he would pick. And this is what I'm curious about. Number one, let's assume that he picks a new nominee. Is there going to be magically some kind of dirt on that nominee?
I don't know. What if there is? Do you investigate it or you leave it? I mean, this is a precedent-setting thing. If somebody alleges a sexual assault of a nominee, do we really want to establish by precedent that we're just going to say it's politics and never investigate it?
I think we should set the precedent that, well, this is one of the biggest arguments I've heard from people that irritates the piss out of me is, number one, we need to keep, regardless of whether you think it's a job interview or a criminal investigation, either way, we should still say he is innocent until he is proven guilty. Yeah. Because we shouldn't deny a Senate seat, like...
I have no problem saying he's innocent until he's proven guilty, but this is not a criminal investigation. I would protest it being a criminal investigation. I think it's well outside the statute of limitations, but there's nothing to stop the FBI from doing a background investigation. They do that all the time. They did it on Judge Kavanaugh before these accusations, and they should do it again after these accusations.
Agreed. What I think should happen is, number one, we set the precedent that regardless if it's a job interview or a criminal investigation, he is innocent until he is proven guilty.
Yeah, of course he is.
And which starts off with, or fuck, I lost my train of thought. Which means, like, I'll use the Ford case for an example. Let's say they go in to investigate this and they find no evidence to back up. Like, let's say the full investigation, let's say in 1 week the FBI comes up and they says, we found no evidence to prove Dr. Ford's accusations, and we found no evidence to prove Deborah Ramirez's accusations.
Yeah,
they come out and they say that it's been 1 week. Even though it's been 1 week, we say, okay, he's innocent. That means nothing happened. We approve him to the Supreme Court.
I wouldn't say it means nothing's happened. I just say that they found no evidence.
Fair enough, but we would agree that if because they found no evidence, he should be approved to the Supreme Court because we have found nothing to say that.
Oh, hell no! Of course, I don't think that. But I would have no grounds to protest in the same way I would be right now. Like, obviously, I don't want Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. We can be honest here. I'm not. I see that as a stolen seat that rightfully belongs to Merrick Garland. I'm not a fan of Republican jurors, and I don't like solidifying a Republican majority for generations to come. That said, these are serious accusations, and they warrant a serious investigation. So, I mean, I would say I can't bitch that I didn't get my investigation. But that investigation can't be politically limited in scope, right? There can't be a politically motivated reason to narrow the investigation, because then it's not an investigation, right?
Sorry, I got a phone call. But yeah, we agree on that. My basic point is solidifying that if the investigation doesn't pull up anything, we most likely.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. He's going to get confirmed if this turns up. This doesn't turn up anything.
Oh, I think he's going to get confirmed no matter what. I'm a pessimist, but what kills me is people declaring with certainty Okay, there's a number of things that kills me about this. One, this is probably more prescient a week ago than it is now, but one is that there was a very serious and very credible accusation against Judge Kavanaugh that was not being taken seriously by Republicans. That was not being investigated. Christine Ford's accusations.
Okay.
Right? Republicans didn't want to investigate. They didn't want to take it seriously. They said they'd give her a hearing. That was the best they were willing to do, but they scheduled a vote anyway, regardless of what she said. So that bothers me. And then there was the dismissive attitude of conservatives in general. She's lying, right? Some dumb American said she'd bet me $5 that Christine Ford was telling me a lie. I watched that hearing. I didn't see a woman who seemed to be lying to me. I saw a woman who gave direct answers to the best of her ability, who seemed to be in control of all of her faculties, who seemed to be a reasonably well-educated and intelligent woman. Did you see something different?
I saw pretty similar to what you're doing. In addition to that, personally, I saw a woman who, like, I'm trying to figure out how to word this correctly because the way it's coming up in my head sounds kind of mean, but I'll clarify. But in short, she seemed like a woman that doesn't know what the hell is going on. And what I mean by that is, now, to clarify on that statement, though, it seemed like she was not told everything about it. She was drugged into this hearing because she admitted when she was asked that she was not informed or had it made clear to her that she could have had testified in her home in California, having had Chuck Grassley's staff go to her house. And I don't blame her for that. I blame her attorneys for that. And if I was willing to guess, I would not be surprised whatsoever if the Democrats in charge of her lawyers told them not to say anything about that because they wanted to bring it in front and make this a whole shit show.
Well, careful. You're doing Judge Kavanaugh's thing. You're doing that random conspiracy theory about Democrats again. Everything I've said has been true. I've not gone about a conspiracy theory. I've stated what Republicans have factually been doing. They factually have not asked for the FBI to, well, I mean, Flake did, but beyond that.
And I'm not saying it's fact either. I'm saying it wasn't. I'm not saying. Okay, no, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think that might be what happened, but I'm not going to say that it's official until I see proof of it. And like, I'm not even going to take the videos I'm making on this series. I'm not even going to take them in that direction. But that's what I saw, and that's why I can kind of understand why he thinks it was a conspiracy theory, because, like, from his point of view, it kind of looks that way. Just randomly, these allegations come up that...
You're doing it again, dude. You're doing it again. Did he have evidence that it was a conspiracy theory?
No, he didn't.
Did he declare that this was a conspiracy by the Clintons for revenge?
Yes, he did.
Okay, then he lied, right? He made a declaration that something is happening that he didn't have evidence of. What would it take for you to disqualify him from the Supreme Court?
Solid proof that he lied under oath, or solid proof that he sexually assaulted somebody.
What about calling Amy Klobuchar a drunk? That's not disqualifying to you?
It's not, like, due to the circumstances that he was under, I don't totally blame him, and I don't think he called her a drunk. I think he asked her if she ever got blacked out.
Right. What if he called her a bitch? Would you still say due to the circumstances he was under? So that's okay? He was really stressed out, so it's okay that he called her a bitch? Would you say that? I want to understand these apologetics. What does he have to say to be disqualified in your eyes? We can ramp it up further.
I'll give you this much. If he had just gone in there yelling and screaming, "Fuck you, fuck the Democrats, fuck the Clintons, fuck you, dickheads that were putting me through this shit."
So anything
most likely I would be like, okay, that's not okay. That's
he can insinuate that Amy Klobuchar is a drunk, but he can't say fuck the Democrats. Right? He could say this whole thing's a revenge plot on part of the Clintons, but he can't say fuck the Democrats. Everything else is fine.
I didn't hear him call her a drunk. I heard him ask her if she had ever gotten blackout drunk.
He insinuated she was a drunk.
How did he insinuate she was a?
By asking if she's ever gotten blackout drunk. That's how you insinuate it.
That's not insinuating. That's asking him a question. That's the same as if I asked you right now if you got blackout drunk. I'm not insinuating you've ever gotten blackout drunk. I'm asking you a question.
Why do you think it's appropriate for a judge at what he calls a job interview to be asking a sitting senator if she's ever gotten blackout drunk?
I'll agree, not the most appropriate response, but I don't think that'll... Like, we're basically expecting him to be the most perfectly behaved person ever to be put on the Supreme Court, and there's a few double standards there. Like, he's not allowed to give his opinion on whether or not he... Like, it's bad for him to declare that he thinks it's a conspiracy on behalf of the Clintons or whatever, but at the same time, nobody's going to say anything. We know nobody's going to say anything about the fact that Ginsburg just rattled off on Trump, and she's sitting on the Supreme Court. Like, if we were going to apply that standard to Kavanaugh and say that being considered to the court, he's not allowed to give an opinion on that theory.
I'm curious. This is the second time you brought this up. How did Ginsburg rattle off on Trump? What did Ginsburg say?
Let me look up the article. Yep.
So I'm curious, though. I mean, you still haven't... I just want to establish this. Barring saying fucking the Democrats, he can get away with saying that this is a conspiracy by the Clintons and Amy Klobuchar. He can get away with asking Amy Klobuchar if she'd ever gotten so blackout drunk. He can do that. None of that's disqualifying to you.
Not at all, because like I see why he would think it was a hit job. He's given his statement on that.
Would you say this of a Democrat? If Merrick Garland got his hearing, if Merrick Garland was given that hearing by Mitch McConnell, and Merrick Garland were asked personal questions about his life, and Merrick Garland instead asked Mitch McConnell, you know, I've never gotten blackout drunk, Mitch. I'm not a drunk. Are you? Do you think that would be appropriate? You think the justification that it's a very stressful situation is appropriate? He's a judge. If he can't learn to handle stress and pressure, he has no business in that job. He has no business in that chair. This is like the easiest thing in the world to agree on. He has to maintain his composure. A judge is supposed to do that.
Yes, but simply asking somebody if they got blackout drunk, like in the context of which he asked it and the tone of his voice, I didn't hear him going on hit.
He apologized for it. Obviously, he thought it was wrong. He apologized for it only a few minutes later.
Well, put it this way. Then I actually forgot about that. But if he apologized for it, then why should the fact that he said it a second ago be disqualifying from the Supreme Court if he caught himself?
He should. Well, no, he didn't catch himself. He apologized because he didn't catch himself. If he caught himself, there would be nothing to apologize for because he wouldn't have said it.
Well,
I'm just amazed at these apologetics. Like I'm flabbergasted, and this isn't necessarily you. This is just all Republicans, right? That he says inappropriate things. Well, he's very stressed, right? He makes up conspiracy theories. He's very stressed. He's not calling for an FBI investigation. Well, he's innocent until proven guilty. And I just have to wonder, what does he have to do to disqualify himself from the court in your eyes? The only answer you've given me thus far is he has to say fuck the Democrats. And that's immensely disappointing to me. Like, is your bar for the highest court in the land really that low?
Oh, there you are. Okay, I got that. I got the RBG article. We'll go into that in a minute. But repeat your question one more time. Sorry, I blanked out for a second.
What I said was I'm flabbergasted by the Republican apologetics with this guy, right? He asks Amy Klobuchar if he's ever gotten blackout drunk, and the excuse is, well, he was very stressed. He makes up a conspiracy theory about how the Clintons are trying to get revenge against him, and well, that's just his opinion, right? He evades direct questions about calling for an FBI investigation, And people are saying, well, he's innocent until proven guilty. So I'm just curious, what exactly, barring saying fuck the Democrats, what else does he have to do to be disqualified in your eyes? Is the bar really that low?
Be proven to have committed the sexual assault, or be proven to have lied on the bench.
The bar really is that low then.
Yeah, I'm not that concerned about him saying something about the Clintons.
Why? Why? Doesn't that go to speak to his state of mind? Doesn't that suggest there's something wrong with him in the head? If any time he gets a little bit antagonized, he thinks that it's a conspiracy theory against him?
This is the first time we've seen him under this kind of stress that we've been under, unless there's video footage of him being accused of something else that he had to defend. But he's maintained a
well, hang on. He's under this kind of stress, and the first thing he did was invent a conspiracy theory. So what do you think is going to happen to him when he's on the court?
His conspiracy theory didn't come out of nowhere. Now, I'm not saying liberals in general, because
it did. He said this was a revenge plot from the Clintons. That came from nowhere. The Clintons have nothing to do with anything.
Let me explain from somebody who's kind of on his side of the political spectrum. Now, I'm saying the far left. I'm not saying all liberals, because I know that there's plenty of liberals that are sane about this. But anyway,
hey, that's me.
But Trump wins the election. We see the left have a freaking meltdown. They act like this is the worst freaking thing that has ever happened to this country. Okay. And most of them have. There have been a few people that I've been able to have civil discussions with, but most of them are just pissed off. They can't have a conversation beyond calling you the common racist, misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic. Like I introduced my Marina Shut Up video. Basically, they think we have a phobia of everything and we hate black people. That's all that they can come up with. We've seen that from just common leftists, the liberal media. Every freaking celebrity has come out and basically alienated half of their audiences by crying, whining, and complaining about Trump. Every fucking award show, every time somebody goes up to give an award speech, they have to say fuck Trump or have to virtue signal to every freaking minority population into the United States. Everybody's claiming that all these minorities are going to lose their rights. I haven't seen them lose any right whatsoever.
Really? You haven't seen trans people lose the right to serve in the military?
The arguments I've heard. Here's the thing: nobody has the right to serve in the military. That is a privilege, and the mental. My family is military. I talked to a lot of them about that. My dad served. My uncle served.
If we're gonna play this semantic game, you haven't seen trans people lose the privilege to serve in the military?
Yes, I saw that, and I got a kind of a neutral opinion on that. I think that maybe we should allow them to take some jobs. But the mental disorders that come with the mental disorders that are common for being transgender in the first place, those are already disqualifying from the military. Like, if you look at the list of things that disqualify you from serving in the military, even I disqualify because my knees are fucked up and I wear glasses.
You nailed it, right? The mental disorders that come with being trans, right? Not trans exclusive, but these mental disorders are disqualifying. So disqualify those mental disorders. Don't disqualify trans people. Right? You're using trans as a proxy for something else.
The mental disorders I'm describing are already barred. Then why I didn't look up the full list of everything, but
right. Then why did we need to bar trans people? If they had these mental disorders, they already would have been barred.
If it's a pre-op trans person and they prove that they are mentally stable, if they prove that they're mentally stable, I wouldn't totally have a problem with it.
What about a post-op trans person who's mentally stable?
Possibly. I would rely that more towards military generals that have more experience in this, but on average, a huge majority of trans people, they got severe mental disorders. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I have no problem with trans people. I believe that they have the right to live the way they live and do what they believe is necessary to take to deal with the stress.
We got sidetracked because you said incorrectly, in my opinion, that minorities were worried they were going to lose their rights. What else? What other ways has the left lost their shit? Since that's what you were talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll finish with that, and we'll talk. We can get into maybe later. We can have a debate about what else I was talking about. But anyway, the media has not stopped bitching about. They bitch about goddamn everything that he does. Like some of it I've heard the people that I know that hate Trump, they're getting in there and be like, oh, why the hell are we reporting on this? We don't care.
Like what?
Like, he puts ketchup on his steak. He got 2 scoops of ice cream and everybody else got one.
Are you insane? That is reason alone to impeach him.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I actually made that joke quite a few times on Facebook. When I saw the article, I was like, all right, okay, fucking get this guy out of the house. But no, jokes aside, though, that's part of why we got irritated. And then comedians, this is what disappointed me the most, because I knew from the second that he said, I'm running for president of the United States, I knew that was going to be a comedy goldmine for professional comedians. And they have drug it on so long and bitched about the same stuff, which includes calling all of us supporters the names that every freaking SJW calls us, that it's just like, now we don't want to hear Trump jokes in our comedy anymore because you can't do it right. All you do is insult everybody that supports him, and you won't shut up about it.
All right. So if I can bring this full circle, you're saying the left has collectively lost their shit because they were worried about minorities losing rights. Comedians can't make funny jokes about Trump anymore, and the news media reported that Trump puts ketchup on his steak.
Well, that was just an example, but they've reported
those were the best examples you could come up with.
Oh, I can come up with more. I'm trying to remember the stupid one that.
Don't remember the stupid ones. Remember the best ones. Like, if you're going to tell me the left has collectively lost their shit because of Trump, tell me the best examples. If the best you got is, well, they reported that Trump eats steak with ketchup, then sorry, I'm just not seeing it.
That's what I'm trying to think of. When I said stupidest, I'm simultaneously meaning the best as far as the context of this argument, because they're reporting on the stupidest things that he does. Like, I'm trying to remember the one that.
Well, I can give you examples of them reporting on serious things he does that the right wholesale dismisses. Right?
All right, go ahead.
Well, for example, when he says Judge Serial can't be impartial because he's a Mexican and he's building a wall, that's an overtly racist thing to say, coming from a guy who was candidate for president of the United States that Republicans wholesale dismissed. Right?
Yeah, that one I will agree was worded poorly. Like, yeah, I won't even totally argue that. That was worded poorly. Like, another person I know that stated that they agreed with the statement due to the fact that he's like. I did hear one person say they agree with the statement due to the fact that they think the judge is being biased because he's Mexican and Trump wants to build the wall. But they worded it better than Trump did. I'll agree that was piss poorly worded. There's a couple others that were really badly worded that I agree with.
What about the media reporting on Trump saying that there's good people on both sides of a neo-Nazi rally?
That was taken way the hell out of context, because.
Tell me the context where that's correct.
There were literally good people on both sides. There were common conservative. Yes, I agree that the Nazis were there. They were terrible people, and I agree that Antifa was there, and they are terrible people.
Perfect. Name me the good people on the side of the neo-Nazis then.
There were common conservatives that were there to protest the removal of the statue. They weren't neo-Nazis.
They were marching with Nazis?
Were just conservatives that were in the wrong place.
Hang on. They were protesting the removal of a statue with people saying Jews will not replace us. And that's your idea of good people?
This is based off of the story of Charlottesville that I heard.
Well, I'm asking, which story did you hear?
The stories that I heard was that common, regular, everyday conservatives, people that they just have conservative views. They don't hate anybody. They just showed up at this rally. They were trying to protest the removal of a Confederate statue. There were leftists that came there to counter-protest, and they had no intention of starting shit. They just wanted to have a peaceful protest, peaceful counter-protest. Shortly after they arrived, the freaking neo-Nazis came in there. They started spouting their racist rhetoric, and then Antifa showed up to counter-protest them, and then shit broke out because they started fighting with each other.
So where did you hear this from?
I'm going to have to look for the source because it's been a long time since I looked that up, and I wasn't going to plan to bring this up in argument.
I ask this question because this Unite the Right rally was advertised months in advance, and it headlined people like Jason Kessler. It headlined people like Richard Spencer, right? It headlined notable white nationalists, notable neo-Nazis, notable members of the alt-right. So I'm just curious, who were these regular conservatives that decided that they would go and protest the removal of a statue with a bunch of white nationalists?
Well, I can't name them because they were just regular citizens.
All right, you're right. You're right. Let me ask you then. Would you march with neo-Nazis to protest the removal of a statue?
If I knew that they were going to be there, hell no. I would go there and I would march with
headlining Richard Spencer.
That were like-minded to me, but
you know who Richard Spencer is, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was the other point I was going to get to. I know who he was. I knew who he was. I'd heard him in the media, and I believe I had only heard him because of the "Hail Trump" shit that he said. Yeah. And I thought he was a dickhead. I never knew anything about him organizing a rally to go down to Charlottesville. All I knew was that there were some conservatives that went out there to protest.
What about Jason Kessler?
Because, like, I don't know who he is. This stream is the first I heard of that guy.
I'm just curious. I mean, you're framing this like conservatives. There were good conservatives at that rally. They just happened to wander into a neo-Nazi rally. And I don't understand this. Do you not look up the people who are headlining an event you're going to? You don't know what it's about?
In the context of what I'm saying, is they showed up. They showed up to help counter-protest this statue that was being taken down. And they didn't know that the Unite the Right rally was going to be there because I never heard about it. I never heard it. Like, this is the first I've heard about the Unite the Right rally to begin with myself.
Then let's go
like
ahead.
I said, I don't have the source on right now.
We'll even be as charitable as possible. They didn't know it was going to happen, and they showed up. Don't you think that when you show up to protest the removal of a statue and the people around you start saying Jews will not replace us, that maybe it's on you to leave? Maybe this isn't the rally for you?
I'm actually now I'm actually kind of curious as to what I would do in that type of situation. Like,
that's
now,
hang
on. Let me clarify. I'm not saying that I would march alongside them whatsoever. No, I would not, because I think those people are disgusting. I can't say for sure that I would leave, but I can't say at the very least, if I stayed, I would not march beside them. I would be saying, because like I said this after I found out that they actually existed and were there. This is when I found out the alt-right existed in the way that the media had kept calling them. And this was one of the problems. I don't know if you heard about this guy, Graham Allen, but he and I know you're probably going to hate the other person I'm bringing up, but just bear with me. I'm bringing up an example from the other guy I'm talking about, but this guy, Graham Allen, he was having a discussion with Tommy Lahren on a live stream one time, and he said once that they're calling us. This is when I got a hint that the alt-right might exist. He was saying, is like, they're calling us all these racist, these names, racist, alt-right, Nazi stuff. He's like, if these people actually exist and actually show up, we're not going to see it happen because they're calling, it's like crying wolf. It's like the boy who cried wolf. They're calling all of us that. So if they actually show up, why would we believe the leftist media when they say that they showed up? And then what happened? They showed up, and a lot of people were legit flabbergasted by the fact that actual Nazis and actual white supremacists existed and showed up to this freaking rally. Another guy that I follow, Adam Calhoun, he made a video calling out those Nazis. He made fun of. He'd always made jokes. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm all right because everybody that's liberal calls me all right because I support Trump." He saw that and he did a whole video on. He's just like, this is disgusting. Why are you showing up and talking about Nazism? I thought we whooped your fucking asses in World War II.
That's the question you should be asking for Nazis. I'm just flabbergasted. If I really wanted to protest the removal of a statue, the last thing I'm doing is marching with Nazis to do it. And I can't help but feel like these are Trump apologetics again. The media reports Trump saying there were good people on both sides of a white nationalist rally, which is insane on its own, especially considering a girl died there. But you're saying this is taken out of context. I don't see the context where this is ever justifiable, and I don't think you've sufficiently explained it. I don't think good conservatives just wander into a neo-Nazi rally.
I would have to. Okay, like I said, in the context of what I heard happened, which was conservatives showed up, liberals showed up, and then neo-Nazis and Antifa showed up after that. Now, I see what you're saying as far as leave, but let me ask you this: would you do the same thing if Antifa showed up to a rally?
Yes,
would you be like, "Fuck this shit out"?
Absolutely, because I don't want to be associated with people who are terroristic. That's why you leave. You lie with dogs, you get fleas. On that.
The only reason I even hinted that I would probably stay. Now here's exactly what I would do. If I felt like I could stay and safely counter-protest the neo-Nazi, like, let's say I was there that day in Charlottesville. Let's say I went down there specifically to protest against the removal of the statue. That's all I was there for. That's all I cared about. I'm sitting there. I'm telling them, no, don't take down this statue. All of a sudden, this nigger with a freaking tiki torch shows up. I guess that's kind of a contradicting statement, actually. This motherfucker with a tiki torch shows up and a Nazi flag, and he starts marching beside me saying, yes, keep this statue up. I can't say for sure I would leave, but this is what I would say. If I saw them coming up there and I thought, I don't think they're going to start a fight, so I'll stay. I would stay there specifically to tell him, back off. You ain't part of my movement. You're not, don't lie with my views. We kicked the Nazis' asses in World War II. Back off.
Cool.
Maybe try to start a debate with them.
We've spent enough time on this. We got off, and you were going to read to me the Ruth Bader Ginsburg thing?
Oh, yeah, let me get back to that. Anyway. This is from CNN, but it does have a video to it.
I really don't care about the source. Just tell me.
I'm not going to watch the video. I'll just read it off. But title says Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg calls Trump a faker, says he should resign.
Okay.
Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, well-known candor. I'm not going to pronounce that. Was on display in her chambers late Monday when she declined a retreat from her earlier criticism of Donald Trump and even elaborated on it. He's a faker, she said. He has no consistency about him, says whatever comes to his head at the moment, really has an ego, has gotten away with not turning over tax returns. The press seems to be very gentle with him on that. For the quotes, I don't think.
But she's talking about Trump before he's even been elected.
What's the damn desirable? Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's 2016. I saw it posted today, so I thought it just happened. But the context of seeing that was, I don't have a problem with Justice giving a personal opinion, because if we're going to hold Kavanaugh to think that he can't give an opinion on a political.
Wait a second. Trump said Ruth Bader Ginsburg should resign.
Wait, what?
Trump called for Ginsburg to resign, not the other way around. I thought you made it out as if Ginsburg was calling for Trump's resignation. But this was during the campaign. Ruth Bader Ginsburg gave her opinions on Donald Trump.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I misread the title. That was my bad. Yeah, still. I don't disagree with the fact that she should resign, but that's for completely different reasons. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm willing to bet $5 right now she doesn't live past 2019.
Well, let's hope you're wrong.
Which is why I'm there's another reason why I think they need to both sides. Like, we can argue about which side's doing it worse or anything like that, but that's also why I think Republicans and Democrats need to stop playing politics and just freaking work together on stuff, because Ginsburg's going to kick it. I don't care, regardless of whether or not he gets elected in 2020, I'm willing to bet right now Ginsburg's going to kick the bucket before Trump leaves office, and he's going to get a third Supreme Court pick. So they need to stop this because he's going to get 3 justices on there.
Well, let's hope you're wrong. Certainly don't want Justice Ginsburg to kick it, no more so than I'd want a Republican to kick it.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, especially if he gets reelected. It's gonna happen. She's in her late 80s. She's had multiple strokes, multiple heart attacks. She can't even stay awake for more than 3 hours during a hearing, and like she's not in good health. I don't know how she's lasted this long.
It's a human miracle. Anyway, is there anything else you want to talk about? Because I kind of feel like we played out the Kavanaugh thing. You basically agree with me, so I don't know. You just begrudgingly agree with me on everything, but you agree with me.
We disagree on a few things. I'll admit the original reason I thought we were having this stream, I thought we were going to argue whether he was guilty or innocent, and
no, I would never argue something I don't know about. I would never argue something I truly don't know about, which is why I find it a little annoying when SDA says that she knows without a doubt that Ford's making her claims up. I find that to be arrogant in a way I couldn't fathom, and I think that's the problem with this entire internet community is people want to talk about things with certainty that they cannot know. SDA cannot know that Ford is making things up. SDA cannot know that Kavanaugh is innocent.
Yeah, no, fair point. If I go to the college stream on Wednesday, I might even
good luck.
Find that out if it goes that way.
You watched me talk with her and Monkey and all that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't told that I was getting a time limit. Like, I was told just come on and discuss it, and I thought it'd be for. Oh man, I felt like really rushed. I was like really annoyed because it was like, you can't. This is a big thing. You can't just confine it to 5 minutes. So I mean,
yeah, I think I think that was a little bit on Weibo too, because I don't think she asked SDA before they did that.
No,
and
I know. I love Weibo.
I don't think they communicated about that, but who knows? Maybe they'll.
To be blunt, I don't think SDA was actually all that interested in hearing an opposing opinion.
I don't know. I've only talked to her a couple times.
Yeah.
On the call-in streams, but if it gets brought up on Wednesday, because I'll probably call in then, maybe I'll bring it up. Maybe I'll suggest something. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I'm barred from calling in at this point. I haven't tried, but I'm pretty sure they're probably not going to want me on again. I mean, Weibo might, but I don't know about SDA.
I don't know. I think some people had fun with that. I know you could probably get on a stream and argue with Monkey for a couple hours if you wanted to, because he enjoys arguing with people.
I would love to. I've just used common sense. What? What common sense? Like, what? That's not an answer, right? Just use common sense. I hate that. That's such an appeal to intuition. It's so wrong.
Yeah,
we
fair
cannot
point,
use raw. Yeah.
Fair point, but I followed Monkey long enough to know that I followed Monkey long enough for that to surprise me and make me laugh and not surprise me. I mean, but hell, on the subject of SDA, unless Weibo would do it, I'd be willing to host a debate between you two if you guys wanted to do it. But
with me and Weibo?
No, between you and SDA.
SDA would never do it. SDA would never do it.
I don't know. I don't know her opinion on debating or anything like that.
I know Weibo.
I would agree that she was jumping to conclusions, but I don't necessarily think it was. I may ask her about that because I am half curious about it. If she specifically, or I'd have to rewatch the argument, but I don't remember if she was adamant that it didn't happen to Ford at all, or if.
Yeah, she was adamant. She said it was bullshit. She said it was bullshit, and I said, you can't know that. And she said, I can. It's bullshit. And it's like, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I'm curious if her mind changed after the hearing, because, I mean, I'll admit, I kind of thought like her before the hearing, because there's some new things I didn't learn in the hearing. After the hearing, at first, I'll admit, I was full on, this is bullshit. I believe you possibly paid to make up this allegation just to hold it off until after the midterms, so that they could turn him down because fuck Trump.
Okay.
But now I'm saying now I changed my position. Now I will agree she was sexually assaulted at some point at some time, because I could hear that in her voice and the polygraph and the therapist notes. I believe she was sexually assaulted. Just evidence-wise, there's no proof that it was Kavanaugh.
Yeah, but you look into it anyway.
Yeah, and I changed my opinion on that. I changed my opinion on that. I've stated that since then. I believe she was sexually assaulted with everybody that I've discussed this with, and I'm even going to go into that with my story. And that was one thing I will admit I think was good on Kavanaugh's part and the Republicans. Now, if this was their personal opinion, maybe did.
Let me ask before.
Different opinion, though.
Yeah. Well, let me ask before we part. Let's say in the future you own your own trucking company, and a trucker comes to you wanting a job, and you do it in the course of the background check. You find out that he's got 3 sexual assault allegations against him. Do you hire him?
Sexual assault allegations?
Allegations. Just mere allegations.
Mere allegations. I'm sorry, I'm going to hire him. I'm not going to. What happened in his personal life is his business, and the allegations are not proven. Therefore, I'm not going to deny this man the right to make a living.
Would you hire him as a babysitter?
Just because of allegations.
Okay, would you hire him as a babysitter? Why? Why does that reasoning change?
As a babysitter, hell no. And that's because the list of people I trust to babysit that's a vastly different argument, because the list of people I trust to babysit my kids is.
Let's say it's not your kids. Let's say it's somebody else's kids at a daycare. Do you hire this guy to be a sitter at a daycare? Oh, your reasoning should change, right? Right, your reasoning should stay the same, right? What happened to his private life? They're just allegations. We can't know for sure. Why wouldn't you say that for hiring somebody at a daycare?
Okay, see, there's 2 different dynamics. If I'm hiring him to drive a truck, he's going to be driving a truck on his own. And if they're mere allegations that didn't go to court or anything like that, they wouldn't matter to me. As far as children go, that's different, because other parents are trusting me to take care of their kids. And if there's an allegation, it depends on a couple of things. Number one, it depends on if they were at all credible and if they went to court. If it's the mere fact that the allegations exist, but there was no evidence to prove them. The children part is a hard one, because I believe there's a process for dealing with that.
Yep.
Which is...
You can make a president yet, sir. I'm about done if you're ready.
Yeah, I guess that's a good one to I guess that's a good way to end it. I actually think I might look into the laws on the sexual assault thing like that, because that is kind of a challenging one as far.
Yeah, sure.
Just for anybody that watches this in the future, especially if they come new to my channel, I need more. I'm not saying I would hire somebody just because that with allegations because they weren't proved. I can't talk. I'm not going to say I would hire them right away if they were just allegations. If it was a daycare, that I would be more scrutinizing on to see if they were credible at all or not. Because I know there have been people that have had. Honestly, an example goes back to Kavanaugh. He may not ever get, just because of these allegations and how piss poorly this was handled, he may not, which is one of the other reasons why I understand why he's emotional. He may not get to coach his daughter's basketball team again or teach law again. And the basketball one really hit home for me, because I have a daughter. I understand how important that quality time is to him.
You're going in 2 opposite directions. It's infuriating.
What?
Didn't you just get through saying you probably wouldn't hire a person with a sexual assault allegation to be a daycare sitter because you have to keep other people's children in mind?
Yeah.
So shouldn't you be in favor of keeping him from coaching a girls' basketball team until these allegations are investigated?
I did not dispute that at all. Yes, they should be. Yes, that.
Or
yes, that should be a thing. Right? But
you're too different. This is cognitive dissonance. You're occupying both answers at the same time, and you don't realize it.
How am I doing that? Because I thought we agreed that they should investigate these claims.
Right. So what I asked you earlier was, would you hire somebody who'd been accused of not just one, 3 sexual assaults, to be a daycare sitter? And you said no, because you have an obligation to other people's children. That was your answer, right? But now you're saying, you can understand why Kavanaugh's mad. He's no longer allowed to coach his little girls' basketball team. Why does that change? He's got 3 sexual assault allegations. He should be barred from coaching a little girls' basketball team, shouldn't he? Just by your answer earlier.
Okay, clarifying. I thought if I said specifically no, I apologize. What I was trying to say was I would not hire somebody like that right off the bat. I would definitely be looking into these allegations, see what the police reports had to say, where the allegations came from, what the details were of those. There's a lot of investigation that would have to go into those.
Yeah, fair enough.
What I was trying to say as far as Kavanaugh and the basketball thing is that's why I sympathize with his emotion during that, because the allegations alone. Now, I'm not saying
no,
anything
I got you.
about whether
I
or not he should
understand.
coach.
I understand.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I'm probably just unnecessarily nitpicky right now.
Maybe because it has nothing to do with whether or not they should be investigated. It's just I know how precious that time is with your daughter.
Sure.
And plus, I'm in the same boat. If something like that happened to me, I could lose visitation with my stepdaughter. Just an accusation could actually cost me my visitation with my stepdaughter.
Absolutely.
So that's where I come from when I can sympathize with his emotions. But anyway, sorry I didn't interact with the chat as much. I wasn't able to have it open because of the setup I have at the moment.
Yeah, it was not too bad. Miller there tweeting up a storm in Great Stiff Mail.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I was about 50%. I was at 50% sure that I was going to have to delay this another day or two if the hotspot didn't work because I'm using my phone's hotspot.
Well, we lucked out there because I wouldn't be able to. So, but worked out for the best. And I do apologize if I was a little short. I felt a little rushed on account of the time constraints.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I understand that. I have the same thing. I deal with a shaky ass schedule. Like I said, I got to be up in what time is it? It's almost 10.
If I were on a short list for the Supreme Court, I hope you wouldn't hold that against me.
Of course not. Of course not. That is a discussion for another time. The only thing I would determine is whether or not you're going to follow the Constitution or your personal beliefs when you make a decision.
What if my personal beliefs are the same as the Constitution? What makes you think?
We're good.
What is your idea of follow the Constitution?
Okay, for example, I'll use myself as an example because I don't know your views on everything, so I'll use opinion of myself as an example. I didn't want to admit it for years, but I will admit what Kavanaugh said about pro-life, about the abortion thing. I will admit I'm pro-life, but if I was on the Supreme Court and I was faced with a question with a case, if I was bluntly faced with the case, do we keep or deny Roe v. Wade? I would keep it.
Why?
Because it's been decided
where it says that people are allowed to get abortion.
Well, so far, I got to double check exactly what the ruling was on that. I believe it was under the. I remember reading about it. I just can't recall the amendment of which they used to defend it.
There was no amendment. There is no amendment that says you have a right to an abortion. You want to know their reasoning?
What?
It was a matter for privacy, and there is an implied right to privacy in the Constitution that can be found in the Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and Ninth Amendment, though it is never explicitly stated.
Okay, well, there we go. I knew I'd read it before, but couldn't remember. But yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing about following the Constitution. When people say something like that, it's really lazy. What they mean is follow their idea of what the Constitution is, but the Constitution is a piece of law with multiple different interpretations, and I dislike people who are so sure their interpretation is the right interpretation.
Yeah, which honestly, even on that front, I will admit that's one of the hard parts about picking a justice that will work properly. Like,
just pick one who doesn't rape women, right? Like, if you can just get one that hasn't been accused of sexual assault, you're generally fine. It's a really easy thing to do.
Well, to my knowledge, all but one of them has. To my knowledge, I think only one of them that's on the actual court right now has been. But
yeah, Clarence Thomas, which was probably a mistake, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and then but what I was trying to say is I heard a proposal. I can't remember who suggested it, but I thought I didn't think it was a bad idea. Was even-handed court, like either maybe an even number. I don't know, maybe not an even number, but maybe maybe find one guy that is completely centrist, but then do 3 liberals and 3 conservatives, and have them have healthy discourse over it. And honestly, that may end. Honestly, that may end the fight over. Well, we could lower it to 7, or we could keep it at 9 and add 2 to each side. I got my.
We could increase it to 15. FDR had that idea. Anyway, you about ready to wrap up, sir? I'm sorry, we keep getting delayed.
Yeah, no. We'll just but yeah, fuck it, let's wrap up. Thanks for watching, guys, and remember, I'm out.